Have you ever wondered what will happen to you in that very second when the heart stops? Not an hour later, not a day later, but in that exact moment when the last thought in your head fades away. Most people are afraid to even imagine that moment. But here is what is astonishing. One man claimed that he had seen a map of the other world. He said that souls do not move chaotically, not randomly, but along specific paths, as if on the roads of an invisible continent. That man was Edgar Cayce. And if you watch this story until the end, you will discover what has been hidden from humanity for centuries. Americans called him the sleeping prophet. In those times, when there was no internet and no possibility to instantly verify information, he would close his eyes, fall into a trance, and begin to speak of things he could not possibly know. He was asked the most incredible questions about the future, about diseases, about the mysteries of ancient civilizations. But the main thing that attracted thousands of people to him was his stories about what awaits us after death. Imagine, the 20th century, America was only beginning to recover from the Great Depression. People were searching for hope. And suddenly a man appeared who said, "I see what will happen to you there, beyond the line." People listened to him with their mouths open, and among everything he said, there was one idea that shook even the greatest skeptics. He claimed that there exists a kind of map of the afterlife, and here begins the strangest part. Cayce described that after death, the soul does not vanish and does not dissolve, as materialists claim. It seems to leave the body like a bird flying out of a cage. The first moments, it is a feeling of lightness, of astonishing freedom. But then the soul begins to move, as though guided by an invisible force. And this movement, according to Cayce, always goes in certain directions. He said, "There is a path for those who lived their life in darkness, and a path for those who sought the light. And now, attention, it is here that lies what can change anyone's perception of life and death." Cayce claimed, souls encounter stations, certain points of transition. They can be compared to stops on a map. And at each such stop, the soul feels something particular, either pain and fear, if life was full of malice, or joy and warmth, if a person lived with love. But what shocked people most of all were his words that these stations corresponded to the levels of the planets. Yes, you heard that right. Cayce claimed that after death, the soul journeys through spheres associated with Venus, Mercury, Mars, Saturn. For some, it sounded like mysticism, for others like heresy. But for his listeners, it became a revelation. The map of the afterlife may be connected to the cosmos itself. And now think, if this is true, it means each of us already has a ticket for this journey. And this ticket is not paid with money, but with deeds, thoughts, and feelings. Life is preparation. And if you think that everything ends with the last heartbeat, perhaps you are deeply mistaken. Edgar Cayce told that he saw souls wandering like lost travelers because they did not understand where to go. They did not believe in the light, nor in the laws of the spiritual world, and their path became torment, while others, as if carried by a current, rushed upward to where the light shone, where teachers, mentors, the souls of deceased relatives were waiting. And here I have a question for you, one that cannot be avoided. If right now you close your eyes and imagine your last moment, where will your path lead? Will you go toward the light, or will you be among those lost in the darkness? Cayce said, "After death no one remains alone, but who comes to meet you depends only on how you lived." And in this lies the most frightening and at the same time the most inspiring moment of his revelations. Think about it, because it means that each of us right now, through our thoughts and actions, is drawing our own map of the afterlife. When Edgar Cayce spoke about the map of the other world, people often laughed. But the most astonishing thing is this: many of those who came to him later confirmed his words. Some said they had seen deceased relatives, others said they found themselves in places where time disappeared, and still others confessed that they had experienced clinical death, and what Cayce had described decades earlier matched their own visions. Now imagine what this means. A man who lived at the beginning of the 20th century, without computers, without brain research, spoke of what doctors today record in cases of clinical death. Coincidence? Or knowledge obtained from a source that has nothing to do with earthly logic? Cayce claimed, "The soul moves step by step. It is like a staircase leading upward, and on each step a person meets the reflection of himself. On the first step, everything connected with the body, pains, habits, desires, passions. The soul still remembers the earthly and struggles to let it go. Many linger there because they cannot part with what they loved, their home, their possessions, their people. On the second step come feelings. The soul recalls all resentments, all moments of anger or love. It is here that many first realize that hell is not fire and not demons. Hell is your own hatred, which you experience again and again. Imagine, every cruel word you once said to a loved one returns to you, and you do not just feel guilt, you feel that person's pain as if you lived it yourself. And now, honestly, could you endure even 5 minutes of such a state? On the third step, according to Cayce, another experience opens, the memory of joy, of love, of gratitude. The soul feels all the good it has done. Every kind word, every sincere help, even the smallest smile, all of this suddenly flashes in its memory, and this becomes the light that leads further. But the most frightening, Cayce said, awaits those who lived their entire life in indifference. No particular evil, no particular good, just emptiness. For such souls, the other world becomes an endlessly grey space where there is neither pain nor joy. And this, he said, is worse than hell, because in hell at least there is a chance of redemption. But in emptiness, only cold oblivion. And again, a question for you, the viewer. If right now you were shown your soul, what would its light be? Bright or dim? Edgar Cayce said that every soul eventually rises higher, but the path depends on the lessons we have learned. And here appears the main idea of his map. He claimed that there are entire levels of consciousness corresponding to planets. Mercury, for those who must understand the power of thought. Venus, for those who learn love. Mars, for souls who must work with the energy of will and anger. Saturn, the most difficult level where the soul encounters the trials of karma. People listened to him and did not believe. How is this possible? They asked. After death, there are no planets, no cosmos. And he answered, these are not the planets we see with our eyes. These are spheres of consciousness that correspond to the vibrations of the universe. A man dies, but his soul continues the path. And this path is written in the stars themselves. And here one cannot help but think. If Cayce is right, it means our lives are connected to the cosmos much deeper than we are used to thinking. Astrology, which many dismiss, may be only a shadow of the true knowledge about how the soul works. But Cayce went further. He claimed that every person, even before birth, chooses their path. We ourselves decide which lessons to undergo. We ourselves agree to trials, to illnesses, even to tragedies. And when the soul returns home, there, beyond death's threshold, it sums up, did you fulfill the purpose for which you came? And now imagine this scene. The soul returns, and it is met not by angels with trumpets, and not by demons with pitchforks, but by its own destiny. And if the goal is accomplished, the path opens further toward new worlds. But if not, the soul must return, once again walk the earthly path, once again learn. Do you know what is the most striking? Modern researchers of reincarnation who interviewed children remembering their past lives said the same things that Cayce once said. Coincidence? And now we come to the most important question. If the soul truly has a map and it already knows where to go, then perhaps even our meeting today is not accidental. Maybe you are watching this video not by chance. Maybe you needed to hear these words right now, Edgar Cayce warned. Do not think that beyond the border of life, everything is the same for everyone. There is no single road. Each has their own path, and it depends not on faith, not on words, but on what fills the heart. He told that he saw souls stuck right at the gates of light. They seemed to knock at the door but could not enter. Why? Because their burden was too heavy, too much evil, too much hatred, too much pain they had caused to others. The light did not reject them. They themselves could not approach it, and then the soul began to wander. It returned to places where it had lived during life, searched for loved ones, tried to speak with them. Many of you have heard stories of ghosts. Cayce claimed that these were such souls. They did not leave because they could not let go of the earth. And now think, how many such souls might be right beside us right now? But there were others, souls that rose higher, further into spheres that are difficult even to speak of. Cayce called them dwellings of light. There is no time there. There is no space. There is only knowledge. The soul that enters there begins to see everything at once, its past, present, and future. It understands the meaning of life, not only of itself, but of all people. And the most astonishing thing, it feels unity with other souls. No division, no loneliness, only an ocean of consciousness. It would seem this is paradise, but Cayce said, even there the soul does not remain forever, because it has a mission to return into a new age, a new body, a new life, to learn again. And here begins the most frightening part. Cayce claimed that some souls, returning to Earth, do so not by free will, but because they did not complete their task. They are pulled back by the law we call karma. Imagine, you lived a life but did not fulfill what you were meant to do, and then you once again find yourself here, in the body of a child, in a new family, in new trials. And your memory of the past is erased. But somewhere deep inside the soul still remembers. That is why, Cayce said, children sometimes have strange memories of other lives. Tell me honestly, have you ever had dreams that felt not like fantasy, but like someone else's life? Perhaps they were your own memories. Cayce said that the map of the afterlife resembles a great cycle. The soul goes out and returns, goes out and returns again. And only when all lessons are completed, when love and knowledge become its essence, does it rise higher, to where there is no longer any need to return. These words frightened many. People wanted to hear a simple truth. After death, you will go to heaven if you were good, and to hell if you were bad. But Cayce shattered those illusions. He said, you build heaven and hell for yourself, every day, with every deed, with every thought. And here arises the main question. What are you building right now? Sometimes Cayce gave strikingly vivid images. He said, imagine a river. On one side, light, on the other, darkness. Every one of your deeds places a stone into this river. And when the time comes, you will build your own bridge. And that bridge will lead you either to the light or into the darkness. But not someone else. Only you decide what that bridge will be. Now imagine one day you close your eyes and before you stands this very bridge, and only you can cross it. The question is, where will it lead you? Cayce rarely spoke of punishments. He spoke of choice. According to him, the universe is arranged so that every person has the right to correct their mistakes. But the price of this right, life after life, trials, pain, joys, lessons, all of this is not punishment but opportunity. But admit it, it sounds no less frightening. And again the question arises, if you were given the choice to return here once more or to go further, what would you choose? Edgar Cayce claimed. Beyond the familiar ideas there is an entire staircase of worlds. The soul rises through them, like a traveler on steps, and each step is a reflection of what a person carried in their heart. The first step is darkness. There end up those who in life lived with hatred, envy, anger. It is not hell in the usual sense. There are no cauldrons and devils. There is emptiness, there is cold, there is loneliness. The soul itself creates this world. Cayce said, it is a mirror, and if inside you there was darkness, then there you will find yourself in darkness. The second step is the world of illusions. There a person sees their desires, but they are never fulfilled completely. The soul lives in expectation, in eternal almost. Cayce called it a trap. People who in life were obsessed with money, power, lust. It is there that they continue to exist. It seems to them that they get what they want, but in reality it is only phantoms, ghostly mirages. The third step is light. Here end up souls that have learned to love. There is no fear, no pain. Everything there is permeated with harmony. Souls meet those whom they loved in life. They learn that death is not an end, but a door. And it is on this step that most people stop, because it is difficult to go further. The fourth step is the sphere of knowledge. Cayce said that there the soul gains understanding of its path. Its entire history opens, past lives, mistakes committed, opportunities missed. But together with this comes clarity. The soul understands why it was born and what still lies ahead. This is not paradise. This is school. And not everyone is ready for this knowledge. And finally, the fifth step, what Cayce called the one source. Here the soul merges with the ocean of consciousness, ceases to be I, and becomes part of the great we. There are no words, no images, no divisions. There is eternity. But one can get there only after many incarnations, after hundreds and thousands of lessons. And here is the most important thing. Cayce warned that no one can skip the steps. If you have not passed the lessons, you will be sent back. Not punishment, but law. That very bridge that every person builds with their own deeds. Now think, if right now you found yourself at this staircase, on which step would you stop? In darkness, in the world of illusions, or at the light? Cayce gave examples. He said he saw the souls of great rulers who after death ended up on the second step, in the trap of their desires. It seemed to them that they were still ruling, still commanding, but in reality they were prisoners of their own ego. And he saw the souls of simple people who all their lives helped others, and they rose higher because the light within them opened the way. And here comes the frightening moment. Cayce said, most people stop. They do not rise above the third step. It seems to them they have found peace, but in reality they await return. A new body, new sufferings, new lessons. Because school is not finished. Tell me honestly, would you want to go through all this again? Birth, growing up, illness, losses, fear? Or would you prefer to rise higher, to where eternity begins? Cayce claimed, the key to this staircase is in each of us. It is not faith, not rituals, not prayers. It is how we live every day, how we treat others, what decisions we make, even in small things. Every choice is a step on the staircase, and it is for this reason he called his knowledge a map, because without a map we wander in the dark. We think we live like everyone else, but in reality, every word, every thought is already building our afterlife world. And now think, if right now your eyes closed and you saw the staircase, which first step would you meet? Edgar Cayce claimed, the end of the path is not the end. It is a return home. He said that every soul, passing through pain, illusions, light and knowledge, eventually returns to the source. No one is lost forever. Even those who drown in darkness will one day find the road upward. But here is the question. How many lives will it take? How many times must one return, suffer, lose, before finally understanding the simple truth? Everything is decided by love. Cayce called it the great return. Souls are like drops of the ocean. Each goes through its path, but in the end they merge into one. There is no I, no you. There is only a single consciousness. And it is there that a person realizes everything he did in life, everything he considered important, money, power, resentments, has no meaning. The only thing that has weight is how much he was able to love. And here lies the greatest horror. Imagine, you lived for decades, achieved success, earned a fortune, built a career, and after death, all of it vanishes, like smoke. And only one thing remains, what your inner world was like, bright or dark, full of love or full of hatred. Cayce warned, most people are afraid to look into this mirror. They live as if eternity lies ahead of them. They postpone kind words for later, hide resentments, hoard anger, and then they die, and come face to face with what they themselves have built. This is the true judgment, not angels with books, not gods with thunderbolts, but your own soul, which says, here is what you did, here is what you are. He spoke of terrifying examples, souls who in life tormented others, after death experienced the pain they had caused, but not as a memory, as reality. They felt every tear, every wound, every cry of those they had hurt, and that became their hell, a hell they had created themselves. But there were others, those who lived with love, even in poverty, even without fame. They rose higher. They were met by the light. They were met by the souls of those they had helped. New horizons opened for them, and they did not fear returning, because they knew ahead of them was not eternal darkness, but eternal growth. And here, Cayce asked a question from which there is no escape. What are you building? He said, every day is a brick in your afterlife home. Every word, every thought, every feeling is part of your eternity. And now think for yourself. If tonight your path were to end, what would your home be like? Would it be bright and warm, or cold, empty, full of pain? Cayce was sure. We choose ourselves. We build our own hell or our own heaven. It is not the promises of religions and not fairy tales for children. It is a law that works for everyone, and the finale of his revelations sounds like an explosion. Hell and heaven are not gifts and not punishments. They are reflections of your heart. Do you want to see your future? Look inside yourself right now. And here is the main question with which Cayce left everyone. If right now you were shown the map of your eternity, the one that awaits you after your last breath, would you want to remain there?